Kelly arrived at the studio earlier than usual that morning, her steps familiar yet heavy with a feeling she could not quite name. For 15 years, these halls had been her second home, a place where routine provided comfort and preparation created confidence. Normally, mornings carried a predictable rhythm, friendly greetings, light conversation, last-minute notes. But that day, the energy felt subtly altered. Staff members were polite but distant, conversations stopped when she entered rooms, and an unspoken tension seemed to follow her through the corridors. Sitting alone in her dressing room, Kelly looked into the mirror and saw more than her reflection. She saw the accumulation of years spent showing up, smiling and holding space for others while quietly managing her own pressures. The countdown clock echoed faintly through the walls, and as it always had, it reminded her of responsibility. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in professionalism, even as an undercurrent of uncertainty stirred beneath the surface. The familiar mask of composure. Kelly had long mastered the art of composure. Television demands consistency, warmth, and control, and she had delivered all three without fail. That morning, however, the familiar calm required more effort. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her notes, though her smile remained steady. Years of experience had taught her how to separate emotion from performance, how to place personal concerns neatly aside until the camera stopped rolling. Yet today, the separation felt fragile. Thoughts crowded her mind, memories of long hours, creative disagreements, moments of doubt she had never voiced aloud. None of it was dramatic, but all of it was real. As she prepared to step on stage, she reminded herself of the audience waiting at home, people who trusted her presence as part of their daily lives. That reminder carried both comfort and weight, reinforcing her instinct to keep moving forward no matter how heavy things felt inside. Stepping into an unfamiliar atmosphere. When Kelly walked onto the stage, the audience erupted into familiar applause, and the lights shone just as brightly as they always had. Yet something felt off, as if the room itself was holding its breath. The cheers sounded distant, almost muted, and the energy that usually buoyed her felt strangely out of reach. She waved, smiled, and took her seat, relying on muscle memory and experience. Behind the scenes, movements felt hurried, conversations hushed, and the absence of a scheduled guest added to the sense that the day was unfolding differently than planned. Kelly leaned into her role, determined to guide the show forward, but a subtle disconnect lingered. The practiced routine that usually felt seamless now required conscious effort, reminding her that even the most familiar environments can feel unfamiliar when internal balance shifts. Small cracks in the routine. As the show progressed, small signs of strain began to surface. Kelly stumbled briefly over a line, a moment so minor that most viewers would never notice. She laughed it off instinctively, but the crew caught it, exchanging quick glances. A folded note appeared on her desk, placed quietly and without explanation. Kelly read it carefully, then slipped it beneath her mug, choosing not to react. Her voice remained calm, but her timing wavered just enough to shift the rhythm of the show. Each segment required more concentration than usual, and her thoughts drifted despite her best efforts. The audience sensed something subtle. A pause held a second too long, a smile that didn't fully reach her eyes. These were not dramatic disruptions, but they were enough to reveal that something deeper was unfolding beneath the polished surface. The weight of carrying. It all for years, Kelly had carried the unspoken understanding that public-facing roles often demand emotional restraint. Viewers see the laughter, the warmth, the lightness, but rarely the effort required to maintain it day after day. Behind the scenes were negotiations, creative differences, exhaustion, and the pressure of constant visibility. None of these experiences were unique. Yet together they formed a quiet weight that accumulated over time. Standing on stage that morning, Kelly became acutely aware of how long she had been holding it all together. The dual existence, being both a performer and a person, felt harder to reconcile. She realized that the strength she had relied on was not infinite, and acknowledging that truth did not diminish her professionalism. It humanized it. A growing sense of disconnection. Midway through the show, the disconnect became more noticeable. Kelly missed another cue, answered a question a beat too late, and found herself momentarily lost in thought. Messages from viewers began to appear online, expressing concern and curiosity. Her co-host leaned closer, offering subtle support, adjusting pacing, trying to anchor the moment. Kelly appreciated the gesture, but her focus remained inward. She reflected on the years she had dedicated to the show, the trust she had built with her audience, and the personal sacrifices that often go unseen. The realization was not bitter, but honest. She understood that the strain she felt was not a failure, but a signal. A reminder that even well-managed lives require moments of pause and reflection. When professionalism meets humanity. Live television leaves little room for hesitation, yet Kelly found herself slowing down, choosing her words more carefully. The usual ease felt replaced by deliberate presence. She listened more closely, breathed more deeply, and allowed herself to be fully aware of the moment rather than rushing through it. In doing so, the line between performance and authenticity blurred. The audience was no longer just watching a show. They were witnessing a human experience unfolding in real time. Kelly felt the weight of expectation, but also the freedom that comes from acknowledging reality as it is, rather than how it is supposed to appear. Choosing to speak. Honestly. Then, without planning to, Kelly paused. She stepped away from the script and spoke gently but truthfully about feeling tired, about the challenge of balancing public responsibility with private well-being. Her voice wavered slightly, not from fear, but from sincerity. Tears formed, and she did not hide them. The studio grew quiet, and even the background sounds seemed to fade. This was not a dramatic declaration or a call for attention. It was a simple act of honesty, offered without blame or explanation. Kelly did not position herself as a victim or a hero. She simply allowed herself to be seen as human. In that moment, the show transformed into something deeper, a shared acknowledgement that strength and vulnerability often coexist. The power of a pause. The silence that followed was profound. Her co-host remained still, unsure whether to speak or allow the moment to stand. The audience, both in the studio and at home, watched intently, sensing the importance of what was happening. Kelly's pause was not an ending, but a breath, a space where truth could exist without immediate resolution. By allowing that pause, she gave permission for reflection, not only for herself, but for everyone watching. It was a reminder that not all moments need to be filled with words, and that sometimes stillness carries the most meaning. Stepping away with intention. When Kelly finally stood and stepped away from the desk, she did so calmly and deliberately. There was no dramatic exit, no raised voices or abrupt gestures. She simply honored her need for space. Behind the scenes, production teams adjusted quickly, navigating the unexpected with professionalism. Viewers, however, were left with a powerful image, an empty chair, bright lights, and the echo of a moment that could not be undone. The absence was not unsettling. It was reflective. It invited empathy rather than speculation, encouraging audiences to consider the emotional realities that exist beyond the frame. The echo beyond the studio. In the hours and days that followed, reactions poured in. Many expressed admiration for Kelly's honesty and courage. Others reflected on their own experiences with burnout, pressure, and the difficulty of always appearing fine. Conversations shifted away from gossip toward understanding. The studio itself felt different, quieter, as if holding space for what had been shared. Kelly's absence was not framed as a void, but as a pause, an intentional moment of recalibration that resonated far beyond the broadcast. silence as a form of communication. Kelly did not rush to explain or clarify what had happened. Instead, she allowed silence to do its work. In a culture that often demands immediate answers, the choice to pause was meaningful. It reminded audiences that clarity sometimes takes time and that honoring one's emotional boundaries is not avoidance, it is care. The silence became a message in itself, reinforcing the idea that well-being matters, even in high-profile roles. A moment that changed perspective. For many viewers, the moment prompted introspection. It challenged the assumption that those who appear confident are unaffected by strain. It highlighted the importance of noticing subtle signs, of listening carefully, and of valuing authenticity over constant performance. Kelly's experience served as a reminder that resilience does not mean never faltering. It means recognizing when rest, honesty, and reflection are necessary. The ongoing story. The story did not end with that broadcast. Whether Kelly returns immediately or takes time to regroup, the impact of her honesty remains. She demonstrated that professionalism and vulnerability are not opposites, but complements. By choosing to acknowledge her reality in a respectful, measured way, she offered a powerful example of leadership rooted in self-awareness. Hope grounded in understanding. Ultimately, the moment carried hope rather than uncertainty. It opened space for more compassionate conversations about work, identity, and emotional health. Kelly's choice reminded audiences that it is okay to step back, to reassess, and to speak honestly when something feels unsustainable. The broadcast became more than entertainment. It became a reflection of shared humanity. In honoring her truth, Kelly left viewers not with unanswered questions, but with a deeper understanding of what it means to show up fully, not just for others, but for oneself as well.